Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. I'm your host, Corey Sievers, and on behalf of everyone here in the Savvy Team Wellness community, congratulations for investing the time to come along here and join us to really discuss how we can optimize your health and lifestyle so that you, slow aging, look your best, feel great in the now. That's what we're all about here in the Savvy Team, helping you achieve a high level of health and lifestyle. So look, if you're coming on live, do please give me a wave so I can tell that you're here, and also let us know in the comments any thoughts as we go along, any insights, inspiration. Love to hear from you. Now look, apologies, we've had a bit of a technical glitch as well, so some of you may have had trouble finding this particular link, our original link that we had pre-promoted to everybody, went down and I had a technical glitch, so here we are. Hopefully we'll be able to find you and you find us. Nevertheless, we've got lots of different information here we want to share with you on the show. So congratulations for being with us. And in this particular show, we have a fly here. It's great. I'm going to be chatting with you about nutritional facts that should be common sense, but really aren't, plus the 5 stages of personal growth. So all that and heaps more, no doubt, in the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. So look, as I said before, we're here to help you enjoy improved health and lifestyle. And so when you connect in with our community, you'll have access to step-by-step action plans, innovative solutions, and all the guidance and support that you need to reach that high level of wellness and really live life to the full. And we have a number of different wellness action plans to help you to achieve your goals. So really here in the Savvy Team, we're here to inspire you to, by highlighting your own power to transform your own health and inviting you to be part of the journey and part of the change, really. That's self-responsibility, and be part of our supportive community. We're here to motivate you by sharing examples of how other members of the community are already progressing towards a high level of health and wellness, and to encourage you to begin your journey, and to guide you by providing action plans, programs, guidance, mentorship, and access to specific solutions to help you in really achieving your family's health and lifestyle goals. So congratulations for being with us here on the show. So, whether you're listening to this in the podcast version, watching it on YouTube, catching it live here with us on Facebook, it's important that you realize that all of the information that we share on the show and through the Savvy Team reflects our personal research and experience and is for educational purposes only, so should not be seen as medical advice. The information is general in nature, and so all individual health concerns have not been taken into account. So any comments and experiences should not be interpreted as therapeutic claims. So if you have any question as to the appropriateness of the information with regards to your own personal health, then please do discuss this with your healthcare provider. That being said, we do encourage you to take self-responsibility for your own well-being and learn more on these topics, anything we're sharing in this particular session, and on complementary medicine in general, because no one is more responsible for your health than you. And when you take self-responsibility and stop hoping that someone else can fix you, then you'll be well and truly on your journey. But if there is something that you want to improve about your health and wellness, then we can guide you there. So I'm definitely looking forward to sharing with you some of these nutritional facts, the nutrition facts that should be common sense, but aren't. It's an interesting topic here because when we, sometimes we can be sort of, tricked by the supposed evidence-based science that is running around the internet at the moment. So everybody sort of says this is evidence-based and everything. And actually, when you dig into much of the research, some of the research is flawed or lesser quality research. And even the researchers have made, if you just read the introduction and the conclusion without reading the actual full research paper, sometimes the researchers have come to a totally different biased conclusion as well. So, I'm all for evidence-backed action, but sometimes I think what we're doing today, and these nutritional facts are part of what we're really wanting to do to help you uncover some of the truths versus the myths. Don't get tricked into the myths that are out there and the typical things that are circulated. And that's really the quick tip for this particular session. The savvy quick tip for this session is be careful with headlines or social media posts that seem to really make the rounds. Okay, I just really want to encourage you to be careful with these, because a lot can be shared, and then sort of, because it's shared and shared and shared, develops somewhat of a meme. It almost becomes the done thing. And when I've, in much of the research, when we've put together some of our action plans and even these particular shows or some of the webinars that we do, when I look for some of the deeper information and digging through the studies, a lot of that doesn't even reflect what's shared on the first 10 pages of Google and on many of the medical sites. So sometimes, I see something like, just yesterday I was reading something put out by Heart Foundation sites, both here and overseas, and it was still promoting things based on the lipid hypothesis that saturated fat causes heart disease. Causes high cholesterol, causes heart disease, all that sort of thing, which was based on the 7-country study by Ansel Keys, which he studied 22 countries and kicked out the ones that didn't actually reflect his research, because he was so sure that it was cholesterol and saturated fat that causes heart disease. And so that's a bias amongst the scientific evidence. And so what we're actually saying is every single medical site that you will find regarding information on heart disease, the leading killer in the Western world, is based on flawed science. So this is the thing, evidence-backed medicine it can be very difficult for someone, for the lay person to interpret, because if the first 10 pages of Google all repeat the same things, then it must be right? Well, not so. Not so. And so these nutritional facts that I want to share with you that should be common sense but aren't, are sort of along those lines. And so, obviously anything we have to say, talk with your healthcare provider. But if your healthcare provider believes in the myths, then you're on your own, I'm afraid. You have to find somebody, or you just have to take responsibility and work with your healthcare provider. This is why we suggest self-responsibility, that your doctor, any practitioner, dietitian is not the boss. They're a partner in your health moving forward. And so it's good to have somebody there to refer to, and it's good to have somebody within the system that can support and help you, but you're actually going to want to educate yourself. And that's why, obviously you're that sort of person who wants to take self-responsibility if you're here watching this or listening to this in any way, shape or form. So I do really congratulate you. The other thing that's interesting too, when we're looking at this quick tip here, that what I've experienced talking with many practitioners, also seeing the ones that have broken free and are really teaching some of the things that we teach here in the Savvy team, that when you're inside the system, many practitioners, doctors, dietitians and the like actually have a hard time recommending anything other than the established dogma that the system approves. And it's really important for you as an end user to understand this, that a doctor, like when we're dealing with practitioners that are part of the system and they have their legal requirements and they have much of, they have insurance in place and all sorts of things, because they are actually practicing. Whereas here in the Savvy team, we're just guiding, we're pointing you towards different information and encouraging you to educate yourself. It's a different scenario. It's a different sort of partnership. We're a guide. They are actually giving you medical advice based on your personal situation. So it's different. But the thing is that when they're in the system giving you advice, they will not get in trouble if they promote everything that the system agrees with. So this is why, this is why the standard of care, if you have heart disease, is to put you on a statin. That's the standard of care. That's what they have to do. Even if they don't believe in it, it's what they have to do. If you present with high blood pressure, the standard of care is to give you medication. And hope that you change your lifestyle, but that's the standard of care. They can't do anything else, especially in the short period of time. That's the system. So here's the thing, for you to try to expect something different of the system, that's actually your fault. It's not their fault. So, it's interesting. I've been listening to the audio book here by this is an extended quick tip, but the quick tip is don't believe all the headlines on social media, or even sometimes the standard advice. But I've been listening to this audio book by Ken Berry, and I like it because of the fact that that he is a medical professional himself, and he said, when I was a fat and sick doctor, I used to spread all these same myths. And so he's broken through. And so, whenever someone within the system breaks out of that, they're very passionate because they realized how they were personally duped, and they want to really correct the wrongs, so to speak. So they almost become like activists. And that's what I see Dr. Berry has become a bit like there. And he really is trying to encourage medical professionals to open their eyes to how they've been duped. And that's why he actually called it lies my doctor told me, even though he's a doctor, to really medical myths that can harm your health. And, I was listening to this and finding it really interesting in that he has a whole section there where he's talking to professionals saying, you as a professional, you need to get your act together because there are people out in the world now that know more about nutrition than you do unless you get educated. So he was sort of a bit of a call to arms, a call to action for doctors to get educated. I have a different sort of opinion in a way. I think that we as consumers need to know where people are coming from. And so therefore, within the system, if that system is based on doctors doctors are great at diagnosing, and they are basically an outlet for the pharmaceutical companies. And so I want to use the system, and I want a doctor to help me to get diagnosed and to all that sort of thing. But I don't want to accept the recommendations of medication. So again, so the problem is, I believe that consumers have this belief that the doctor knows everything, whereas no person can know everything. That's why we say you need to have self-responsibility, because no one will know more about your health or be able to be in control more than you. I know sometimes it's more comfortable just to go, look, someone take care of me, but in reality, no one cares more about your health than you. So this is a bit of a call to arms for you to take self-responsibility. And if you're here, chances are you're already somebody who wants to tap in, get connected, get educated, and take things to the next level. So if you want to read up on, you can read Dr. Berry's book or listen to it on audiobook. It's a fairly simple book, but it really just goes through and uncovers some of these myths that are being promoted. But I think you'll find that we'll be uncovering some myths in this particular session as well. So congratulations for being here as we talk about the nutritional facts that should be common sense, but pretty much are not common sense. So let's go through number one here. So, the first one that I really wanted to talk to you about is like in a little bit in alignment with what I just went through. Let me just see what we got going on here. All right. Okay, so number one here, I think I've got 18 nutritional facts that should be common sense, but aren't, for us to go through. And the first one that is sort of in alignment with what I said, but the quick tip there is to be careful with the clickbait news headlines. Much of the news headlines that are circulated on social media and even on some of the sites, I see some of the same things, even on medical sites, with clickbaity-like headlines. And Dr. Berry also uncovers that even some of the things that medical journals such as the Lancet used to be very rigorous with, they're not as rigorous with anymore. They just seem to publish anything. And this is a challenge for the end user. So be careful with the clickbaity news headlines and take those headlines with a grain of salt. So, really the mainstream media is one of the reasons behind the circulating of these nutritional myths and confusions. And that's because it's more just about traffic rather than really truly educating people. And in many cases, higher quality studies directly actually contradict the media frenzy. So, and this is the thing. Essentially, they need traffic, and even medical sites need traffic, and so it's just important to be careful. And as I was saying, Dr. Berry was even having a go at the Lancet medical journal where they used to fact check everything with a third-party professional, and even now that's been relaxed just to get traffic to the site. And this is the thing: as we move more online, and it's a busy world and everything, we've almost got to create these newsworthy headlines rather than just look at the facts. And it's said that Mark Twain said that it's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. Now, some people say that he didn't say it, but nevertheless, that's a pen name. And Samuel Clemens supposedly said that, the real name of the person who was known as Mark Twain. But it's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. And, that's the thing. These articles, it's easier to grab your attention for you to believe what's printed in so many of these media frenzy type of things than it is to convince you that you've been wronged. And that's why, what I'm taking on here to spread some of these, the facts that should be common sense, I'm taking on a bit of a hard job here because I'm going against the general wave that's out there with the misinformation. So it seems as if there's a new study that hits the headlines every week, and sometimes they're contradicting each other and contradict the one that came out a few months earlier. And so it's any wonder that you get confused. And so you tend to believe the things that you see most often. And that's what I'm saying is a little bit dangerous here. So it's almost like the old saying regarding the stock market, that when the shoeshine boy was recommending a certain stock, it was time to get out because it was like everybody believed this, and so things were overhyped. And I think that's what's unfortunately happened in this day and age. In many cases, there are higher quality studies that directly contradict some of the frenzy out there. And look, it's well known in media and marketing that people read the headline and then they read the opening paragraph. That's why the old newspaper, maybe the concluding thing, the old newspaper used to have that, used to have a picture, a headline, and basically the preamble. And that's what most people will read without reading the actual story. And it's also well known in letters that most people, we all follow human nature principles, and we tend to read the opening and read the conclusion, or read the opening and one of the most read things in a letter. What's that thing that we used to send? A letter or an email is the PS, is the PS, because we just have this tendency to want to get to the bottom line without knowing the guts of it. So careful with the clickbait news headlines. Another one here is cholesterol isn't the enemy. Now, cholesterol isn't the enemy is number 2 here in the nutritional facts that should be common sense but aren't. Now, what people generally refer to as cholesterol in a blood test, and we simplify it. We go along and the doctor tests our cholesterol levels and tells us our good cholesterol and our bad cholesterol, and none of what they're testing is actual cholesterol. What they're testing is that they call bad LDL and bad LDL and good HDL cholesterol is really the lipoproteins. So they're actually proteins that carry cholesterol around in your blood. So they're markers that they're looking for. And so the truth is that cholesterol is actually not the enemy. It's not the main determinant for heart disease. And so what we go through in our 7 steps for a healthier heart and in our Healthy Heart Challenge program is educate you on the fact that many people sort of think, like if you think of soup and the fat globules floating around on top of the soup, many people sort of think that the fat in your blood, because it's the cholesterol that's being measured, slops up against the side of the artery and just sticks there. We're sort of led to believe that too much cholesterol means that you'll get cholesterol in the arteries, and it's not at all the case about how that actually works. So the truth is, cholesterol is not the main enemy. Okay, the main determinant, and even on the medical, I'll read you. This is what they said on some of the medical sites. The main determinant for heart disease is actually the type of lipoproteins that carry cholesterol, not cholesterol itself. Now, while that's part of the truth, the main determinant is inflammation in the body. Inflammation. So that all the medical sites were saying even it's the type that matters. Well, yes and no, but what matters more is your markers for inflammation. It's the trigger, it's the underlying cause of heart disease. And so many people are on an inflammatory diet and do things that inflame themselves. So you may think, well, what about smoking? Well, smoking is linked to heart disease. Yes, because it triggers rampant inflammation and oxidation in the body. So why do antioxidants help with that damage? Because they quell the inflammation and oxidation in the body. So the root cause is really this rampant inflammation. And it's not so much even the fats in our diet that are the issue. So for most people, the dietary cholesterol has little or no effect on their body. In actual fact, many people see better health when they eat more cholesterol-rich foods. Okay, and so what most people don't realize also is that most of the cholesterol level isn't coming from your food, because your body will produce cholesterol. So you might lower your dietary cholesterol to absolutely nothing, and then your body upregulates the production. So there's a lot more going on here, and I'm simplifying things a bit here, but cholesterol itself is not the enemy. In a lot of cases, it's really inflammation that we've really got to deal with. So really, really important, especially since inflammation is linked to most diseases today. Let's stop this whole lipid hypothesis that we need to worry about, decreasing our cholesterol levels and getting onto a statin to do that, which is linked to a myriad of issues, more significant issues than actually cholesterol. So again, look, should be common sense, but it is not. Number 3 is artificial trans fats are not suitable for human consumption. Artificial trans fats are really not suitable for human consumption. Just a sec. So what are trans fats? What are trans fats? Like, trans fats are definitely unhealthy. And, when we think about the primary dietary source for trans fats, these are processed foods and these partially hydrogenated oils that you'll see on all this packaged food, for example. So look for partially hydrogenated oils on the package list. But when we look at trans fat, there are naturally occurring trans fats, not just the artificial ones. But naturally occurring trans fats are produced in the guts of some animals. So when we're eating these animal products, like meat, dairy products, and everything, we can get small quantities of naturally occurring trans fats. And so that's not the problem. The problem is these artificially occurring trans fats. Because again, when we think biochemically, when we think about how how we've evolved eating many of these foods, such as animal products, etc. And there's argument about that as well, but the one thing that all of us can agree on is that many of these man-made foods, we didn't evolve to eat those. So, even if the jury's out as far as whether meat's healthy or not, it doesn't matter whether you're from the vegan community or the carnivore community, we can all agree that these processed oils can be damaging. So again, we want to get rid of these artificial trans fats. And again, the primary source, as I mentioned, is the partially hydrogenated oils you'll see on the label. And so initially the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration in the US, deemed that these were generally regarded as safe. They were safe to eat. But now they've made a preliminary determination that these oils are no longer safe in human food. And so What's the problem though is that that's where you might see zero trans fat on a label. Here's the thing: they can legitimately put zero trans fat on a label, even if it has a low level, below a certain percentage. Doesn't mean that there's none. It means that there's a low percentage. And trans fats are easy to use in terms of they're stable, they don't go off, they're inexpensive to produce, they last a long time. That's why they give food a particular texture and taste, and so that's why they're well used in packaged foods. Many and this is the thing. Even back, this isn't new news because my original teacher in the nutrition and healing field, you know. Even when I was eating biscuits still eating wheat and that sort of thing, he was big on avoiding all of the margarine products, any hydrogenated oils, and you're better off to go for natural butter. So this is nearly 25 years ago. Really, it is 25 years ago. And so I would be looking at the label and avoiding any margarine, any partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, any of those sorts of things, and looking for foods that contain more of the natural ingredients and less additives. So this isn't new news. This isn't some funky new science. This knowledge has been around for some time. It's just that since then, so back when I was first learning, it was very word of mouth. The internet wasn't there, and so it was word of mouth, and so many people thought that these fats, hydrogenated fats, were healthy because it showed up in all of the marketing that they were healthier. We're getting to that, and so it was only word of mouth where people would learn to reach for more natural food. So how do these also trans fats can be found in all of the deep fried foods as well. So it's more in the packaged food. So what's pictured on screen here are things like chips and it's not so much even the hamburger, but the bun that's more likely to have the trans fat. And then also things like even donuts and packaged foods and muffins and all of these things have can be loaded with trans fat. So it's not the whole meats or the dairy or the cheeses and everything. It's more these packaged processed foods that you need to watch out for. Plus, when you're watching out to avoid the trans fat, you're also avoiding all of these the other inflammatory oils and too much sugar and too many additives and as well as the poorly dealt with flours and all of that. So there's a lot of negative things and a lot of inflammatory agents that you eliminate when you eliminate the packaged food. So trans fats can be found in, as I said, the things like baked goods, even the buns and the donuts and cookies, pie crusts, biscuits, frozen pizza, cookies, crackers, or many of the crackers, even the healthy gluten-free ones and low, all can contain trans fats. So, it's interesting, but I would avoid those things. They are not healthful for you. And here's the thing: if you're getting a lot of these trans fats in your diet and not enough of the good ones, the body's not, your body. Your body's pretty good at triage. It's pretty good at crisis management. So what happens is that, if you just think of a building site, if the raw materials, if all of the raw materials haven't been delivered to the building site, you just don't build. You don't just start chopping down trees and doing whatever, find whatever you can to build. You wait until the right raw materials are there. Well, your body can't do that. It has to function. And so if you're only supplying it with damaged inflammatory fats, it will use them, but you won't be healthy. But as soon as you start supplying the body with the good fats and eliminating the bad ones, your body can start to do some natural repair work. So that's really important to understand there. It's never too early and it's never too late to give up these bad oils. Now, that's why, again, we encourage you just to follow the Eat Savvy dietary protocol. So you can access that from our blog. So even if you just Googled Eat Savvy Diet Get Started, you'll find that. So yeah, really look to avoid dietary these dietary trans fats by eliminating packaged foods, and eat more of a dietary pattern that emphasizes vegetables and then some fruits, poultry, meats, nuts, those sorts of things, whole foods, and not whole grains, but whole foods, naturally occurring unhydrogenated oils as well as laid out in the Eat Savvy diet. So you know, I'd also probably limit the commercially fried foods. You know, a lot of the times what they say is you know, fried in polyunsaturated oils. And it's not what's there, it's what happens in the continuing use of this oil that's the problem. So, you know, I have historically, I'll give you an example of, for my personal situation here. You know, I historically have had certain types of headaches that I've got, more migraine-like headaches, and in the past, and I've gone to different practitioners and different therapists and chiropractors and massage therapists, and because I'm very aware, I've described to them, I've said, this is where I feel this is it, and I've always thought it was more physical, it was imbalances in my body, it was my big head, it was, you know, working at a desk and all these sorts of things. I really did not believe, perhaps like you, I did not believe that my issues were still potentially dietary related. I was already supplementing, doing exercise, doing you know, functional movements to try to restore imbalances and all that sort of thing, stretching, all these sorts of things. And it's not to say that I'm totally free of all the aches and pains, but nevertheless, it was interesting that there's a couple of things that I gave up from really noticing by paying personal attention to things, is that I noticed if I did go out to dinner, and I rarely ate fried foods and everything, but if I did go out to dinner and let's say had, you know, because I was avoiding grains and all that sort of thing, let's say I had fried fries. Let's say I splurged and had fries. I remember one experience splurging and having fries. And we were having a catch up with people, had a glass of wine and had some fries, and I hadn't eaten anything else different. And the next morning I was all like, my head was all sore and grindy and all that sort of thing, and I thought, yeah, I'm not doing very well with wine. I obviously can't drink wine. I should give up the wine. And little did I realize that I'm much more sensitive to these inflammatory oils and the nightshade vegetables like potatoes. So deep fried potatoes just created an inflammation nightmare in my system and would then therefore trigger a headache. And so when I eliminated all fried foods and eliminated potatoes and the nightshade vegetables, my headaches went away. And this is after decades of seeing all of the experts to try to find out the thing, and they said there's nothing wrong with that, and I'd say yes, but I get the pain here, and there must be something wrong with my atlas, because that's where it sort of feels, and I try to explain, and they'd say there's nothing wrong there, and there's nothing wrong there, and there's no reason for that, and all I did was stop eating fried food and potatoes and tomatoes and nightshade vegetables like eggplant and all that sort of thing, and the headaches went away. So I don't know for sure whether it's exactly the fried foods or it was the nightshades, but nevertheless, decades of trying to find the answer, and I partially found the answer. So that's why we're here to really share that sort of thing. And I'm talking, I went to all the experts and they couldn't find the answer. Self-responsibility and self-education is the way that you will find the way through. So here in the Savvy team, we're here to guide you, be like pointers to say, this could help, this could help, this could help, and then you know, when you execute upon those ideas, you will then know. So if you've had any experiences of this sort of thing, then please share with us too. You know, maybe you've had some eye-opening stuff like me, where you really didn't believe it was just food or just nutrition, and yet it turned out to be the case. So that also leads us to the fact that certain vegetable oils should also be avoided. Okay, so certain vegetable oils like sunflower oil, soybean oil, corn oil are very inflammatory and also contain large amounts of omega-6 fatty acids. And studies suggest that a high intake of omega-6 fatty acids relative to omega-3 increase this low-grade inflammation in your body. So being careful, and yet these are all the ones that you're told to use more of in order to avoid that nasty artery clogging saturated fat. So oils that are high in omega-6 do contribute to, or may contribute to, the oxidative stress in many people too, which then can contribute to heart disease. So, really, it's a good health strategy to avoid vegetable oils in general. But some of these things that are okay are like olive oil, for example, even some safflower oil, things, avocado oil. These sorts of more of the unsaturated oils are great, but then also we're big fans of the more of the things like coconut oil and even ghee and some of the things that contain saturated fats. So do your own research there, but you can certainly get a lot of that information in the Eat Savvy Diet Masterclass. So check that out. But what happens is, when they're talking about the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, when you eliminate these seed oils, your ratios will probably be perfect. So you may even need more. So what we find is that some people who eliminate the seed oils, the damaged, nasty, inflammatory ones, actually do need a little bit of supplementation. And so that's why in the blends that we use, such as krill oil blend, there's also some chia and cranberry and these other oils, and we recommend other sorts of oils to sort of bring up your balance of omega-3, 6, and 9. Because, when you eliminate all of these fried foods and packaged foods and these inflammatory oils, your levels do really naturally come good. And in the bioinfluence report, hair analysis tests, we do see on those who have really, really cleaned up their diet that they actually need to balance up their profile a bit. It shows the priorities really clearly that you may need more of a supplement that has a blend of omega-3, 6, and 9, and that's why we use those sorts of blends. So anyway, certain vegetable oils, be careful about them, but that's all laid out in the Eat Savvy diet. All right, number 5 here in our nutritional, the nutritional facts that should be common sense, but aren't, is low-fat, organic, gluten-free does not mean healthy. We're led to believe this through all of the marketing, that these are all marketing terms nowadays, and all marketing terms for packaged foods. Okay, so there's a lot of different popular trends that are going on right now. Once upon a time, it used to be low fat. Now it's organic, it's gluten-free, it's vegan. And so there are many packaged foods being promoted as vegan. And what does that mean? That means it's probably got partially hydrogenated vegetable oil and other artificial things. Plus, we're seeing things such as the vegan hamburgers being promoted. Tastes just like beef. You've ever thought, how did they get that done? There's loaded with chemicals, loaded with artificial trans fats, loaded with toxic ingredients to get it to taste the same. So it's not healthier. It's more inflammatory. So vegan, gluten-free, natural, organic, they're all marketing terms. They're all marketing terms. And whether that's from a dietary and packaged food point of view, or whether that's even personal care products, because what I've seen across the board with personal care marketing as well is natural, organic, herbal, all of these terms promoted, and yet they're not as natural, organic, and herbal as you really think they should be. So popular terms today. So just because something's low fat, gluten-free doesn't always mean it's healthy, as I basically said there. So, again, you got to look for the junk food ingredients and all of that sort of thing. So obviously foods that are naturally free, naturally gluten-free, for example, like unprocessed foods that never contain gluten can even be marketed as gluten-free. But you can be careful with the packaging and the marketing terms here, Because again, when it's gluten-free, we think it's therefore healthier, but then it might contain potato starch. It might contain corn oil. It might contain cornmeal, other inflammatory things, rice flour, which is usually not too bad. But again, you've just got to really look at some of those sorts of things. So take for me for example, if I'm looking to avoid gluten, and which I tend to, not that I'm celiac, but I tend to avoid gluten, and also not so much gluten, but wheat, because it doesn't just contain gluten, it contains other inflammatory agents like gliadin, which can wreak havoc in the system and in the gut wall. But so if I'm avoiding wheat and I'm avoiding other things like that, and I go for something that says gluten-free, and yet it's loaded with potato starch, which should be good, but then I don't tolerate very well, then that hasn't been healthy for me. So if I simply avoided the packaged food, good to go. So I know, it's not to say that you don't splurge a little here and then, but you start to learn to see what works for you, what's good for you, and what's marketing versus what's actually healthy. So look, the low-fat, originally it was all about low-fat foods, and they worked for, they promoted it for prevention of heart disease, for weight loss, and all that sort of thing. And yet numerous long-term studies have shown that this suggestion didn't work for weight loss or disease prevention. So as we've been on this low-fat craze, heart disease has gone up, diabetes has gone up, obesity has gone up. So then we've had this plethora of processed low-fat foods, and because when you remove the fat from a food, it basically, they're either going to add in sugar or add in artificial things to make it taste better, or add in other textural changing products, and so none of these are natural. So our bodies are less able to deal with those man-made foods than the natural fat. So that's the thing. So just be careful about the claims on packaging. People, you're probably becoming more health conscious than ever. People are becoming more health conscious than ever, and the food manufacturers are aware of this. And so all I have to do is slap one of these marketing labels on their food, and then they have a new market for these health conscious people. So, and these are misleading. Whole grain goodness, low fat, organic, natural, herbal. Like some of the low fat foods that are loaded in sugar and artificial flavors and colors get the Heart Foundation tick of approval. They're not healthy. They're going to jack up triglyceride levels, but which is going to be a problem. They're loaded with inflammatory things, but they get the tick because they're low in fat. I mean, it's any wonder that you get confused by following the typical advice out there, because it's just based on, the general trends, marketing to the general trends. So just take control there. The more that you can read labels, associate with trusted organizations, trusted brands, the better. Whether that be from the food that you're purchasing, or whether that be even from the cosmetics, personal care, shampoos, skincare, all of that sort of thing, then that's really important. And that's why we work with brands that we know we can trust. All right. So number 6, junk foods can be addictive. Now we cover this in some of our material around our weight loss protocols, because people are eating more processed food than ever before, and these days food engineers have found a way to make food so rewarding that the brain gets flooded with dopamine, and it's really hitting the addiction centers in the brain. And so that's why in our weight management programs, we actually say that a lot of the reasons for obesity for you is that there are 3 reasons that it's not even your fault. One of them is one of them is the marketing. Another is the fact that they're engineered to trigger our brain to just want more, and so we're succumbing to this process. And also, you're not being told about personal care products containing endocrine disrupting chemicals and many foods that actually trigger your body to hold on to fat. So the more, there's so many advantages of cleaning up your diet and cleaning up your household. in terms of its improvement of your health. But lots changed in the last 100 years, our food and our lifestyle and our environment, all that sort of thing. So certainly people are eating a lot more processed food. Just think about it. What did grandma eat? Or probably we could go to great grandma, because perhaps your grandma, depending on how old you are watching the show, we saw a tremendous introduction of packaged foods post-war, post-World War II. So before that, though, we ate more natural sorts of foods. The whole infrastructure for packaged foods wasn't really there. So we were eating a lot less chemicals and a lot more natural foods. And we were all skinny, so people were more profoundly thin. They the heart disease was less. There was not obesity, not so much. Some people say that the reason that we saw a lesser prevalence of disease back then is because we didn't have the technology to diagnose it. Well, all right. Why was everybody easily thin, and now we're having such a problem with that? Why was diabetes so low and everything? What were some of those more obvious things? What was that all about then? Exactly. So things have changed. So, with this whole issue here, with the people have actually, you may feel this, where you've actually sort of lost control. You don't feel like you're even in control of what goes into your mouth. It's because you're actually activating, the foods have activated your addiction control centers. So many studies are examining this phenomenon, and they've seen that there are similarities with the firing in the brain from junk food compared to even drugs. So, typically abused drugs. So just be careful with the junk foods. Understand that the marketing and the engineering has been put in place to make you keep consuming them. So while, and you may have experienced this, you just say, I'll just have one, and then boom, it's a blowout because you can't stop at one, because they've been engineered that way. So just understand that. All right, number 7, neither fat nor carbs make you fat. So we can't just blame that. Fat's often been blamed for obesity, and that's a problem. And the reason again we go through in some of our workshops is because it has more calories per gram than protein and carbs. It's got the blame, so to speak. Plus, it's attached to this lipid hypothesis for heart disease, which, of course, remember, is a hypothesis. It was never actually proven, but yet all of the medical literature for 50 years based on heart disease has been based on an hypothesis. Don't get me started. Anyway, so fat's been blamed for obesity as well, and yet people who eat a diet that's high in fat but low in carbs end up naturally eating fewer calories than people on a low-fat, high-carb diet. And this has led people to blame carbs then. So then conversely, you look at this and people then blame just the carbohydrates. Now that's incorrect as well, because there are plenty of populations throughout history and around the world who have managed to eat a high-carb diet and remain healthy. So, this, again, as with pretty much anything in nutritional science, it all depends on context, on what else is going on, what's really, truly going on. So both fat and carbs can be fattening, but it all depends on your overall lifestyle. Now, it's true that what we see in this day and age is it's mostly people eating too many carbohydrates that's triggering, and too often triggering continually high insulin levels. And in some of our things, such as our weight management classes and programs, I've sort of shared the insulin index in that many people sort of think that because a food is natural or a whole food, then it's therefore healthy and you can eat as much as you like of that. Whereas it can still be triggering insulin, which is fine if you're at a healthy weight, but if you're trying to lose weight, that won't be very helpful. So neither fat nor carbs makes you fat. It's all about context. And sometimes in our programs, we to help people get over the cravings and sugar imbalance and all that sort of thing, we optimize fat and dramatically decrease carbohydrates. And at other times, it's sort of like more balance and everything. And so sometimes we actually, like in our rapid fat loss protocol, in some of the phases, we dramatically drop fat down. And this is really because we're wanting to help you lose fat at the fastest possible rate. But it's cyclical and only for a short period of time. If you do that too long, then you get into trouble. And that's what we assert that's been part of the problem with the low fat craze. But again, depends on context, it depends on your goals and all that sort of thing. But neither the nutritional fact is that neither fat nor carbs makes you fat. What we've got to really look at is what else is going on in the system. So look, if you are looking for a program to help you to really look and feel your best and shed fat and reach your optimal body weight, then reach out to us, because we have a number of different programs. We have our rapid fat loss protocol, which is the fastest way for you to reach your goal. We have our body transformation challenge, which is more about body recomposition in building muscle mass whilst decreasing fat. We have our Eat Savvy and Detox protocol, which is not weight loss centric, but people lose weight as a byproduct of detoxing the system and changing their dietary choices. So we have all these different programs. So again, just reach out to us. All right. So the next one here is calories count, but you don't necessarily need to count them. So calories are important. Your consumption, the amount of calories you consume, the amount of energy you consume, is important, but it's less important than our modern calorie counting system has made it out to be. And this is again where nutritional science tried to simplify things to the energy balance of, when they discovered the calorie and the energy in food, they felt like you consume this much, you burn this much, energy balance is kept stable. Great. That's how you lose fat, by consuming less than you eat. You gain muscle and everything by consuming more than you eat. It's not quite that simple. It counts, but it's not quite that simple, because it's more the micronutrients, it's more the hormonal things going on in your system that can make these changes. And this is why, for example, much of the research that they've done have found that even we are now fatter than we were in the 1980s, even at the same level of calorie consumption and exercise. So why is that? How can we as a population be fatter? Like when they test people eating the same and exercising the same now as in the 80s, why are we fatter? How can that be? Because there's more to it than just calories and calories burnt and calories consumed. There's the hormonal side of things as well. And so the researchers believe it's the microbiome that's been messed up, causing us to be fatter. That's the gut bacteria. More on that in a moment. It's the endocrine disrupting chemicals from all the personal care and things that we're not using safety conscious brands. And it's something else that I can't remember. A third one. Anyway, that's why we all need to go and look at some of the other classes we've done so we can remember that. Oh dear. But anyway, it's simplistic at best, maybe even flawed. And that's what's led to the eat less calories, burn more. Okay? So, certainly sometimes tracking calories helps you get back in control of your diet. But again, the more you can learn to keep within a certain range by eyeing up food portion sizes, choosing the best foods, and all that sort of thing, you'll find that your body will naturally rebalance. So what we find when people follow the Eat Savvy approach, their body naturally rebalances, and you're not even needing to diet. That's why with our detox protocol and Eat Savvy approach, some people have lost, like a couple of kilos, 8 kilos, 20 kilos, not even trying, just practicing eating better. and getting their body to function better. So they've naturally reached more of a natural equilibrium. And so you can do that too. Very simple. All right, so number 9 is you don't need to eat every 2 to 3 hours. Contrary to popular belief, eating smaller meals more frequently does not stoke your metabolic fire. Okay? In actual fact, fasting has been shown to help more. And I first discovered this close to 20 years ago when I was reading up on fasting around the anti-aging and that sort of thing, the reduction of calories for slowing aging and all that sort of thing, which has now become more well known. Fasting, intermittent fasting is more well known. Time restricted feeding, and you know, back when I was first reading that, I was being told, related to my own blood sugar problems and everything, to eat more frequently, to eat whole grain goodness every few hours, just like this myth has actually shown. And yet I'm more in control of my blood sugar once I learned to decrease the carbohydrates and follow more of a fasting protocol. So this myth is still ongoing. It is said that if you have smaller, more frequent meals, it'll help you to maintain more of a stable blood sugar, and therefore you'll have less cravings and etc. But the problem is that every time you eat, you're spiking insulin levels, and this is your fat storage hormone. So you know, some studies suggest that meal size and frequency also have no effect on fat burning and body weight. Well, you know, eating every 2 to 3 hours is also inconvenient. Many of the bodybuilding community would put together Tupperware containers and go out and eat all that sort of thing, pre-prepare meals for fear of their muscle, you know, disappearing if they didn't eat frequently. And this is a flawed understanding of how the body functions. And many of those people, once they learned that it's actually there are actually thresholds, protein synthesis thresholds, that the body reaches when you eat enough protein, for example, in one meal, and enough. Some people say that the problem is that we've eaten such small meals rather than having a couple of decent meals, 2 to 3 decent meals, to spike protein synthesis, so to maintain our muscles. So the evidence that I've seen suggests, the best available evidence right now, I would suggest that you restrict the amount of meals that you eat and eat 2 to 3 good-sized meals. And that is also in alignment with much of the historical evidence when we see when people were thin, they ate less frequently. There weren't packaged foods and snacks. They weren't craving in between meals. And so they were naturally able to stay thin. So some people say just eat when you're hungry. Well, until you're in control of your hunger and craving centers, and not such a good idea. So again, once you get more in balance, you'll be right. But as I said, with my story, I was like this. I look at all these not packaged foods, but they're natural foods. So many people are encouraged to take containers to work, and we have here lots of rice and lots of chia seeds and lots of porridge and muesli and all that sort of thing. Theoretically, they're healthy whole foods, but they're just constantly spiking insulin, which is your fat storage hormone. So we do see better results for people in the community when they drop their grain load and eat more of the whole foods and less carbohydrates and fruits and these sorts of things. Not that they're unhealthy. It's just it all depends on what your goal and the context. Certainly if you're looking to lose fat, then grains and fruit are not your best friend. All right. So number 10, health is more than your weight. It's about more than your weight. We're talking here about weight and calories and all that sort of thing. And it's easy to think that it's all just about if I'm trim, taut, and terrific, then I'm healthy. Well, most people do focus too much on weight gain or loss, and this is why many of the weight loss programs really do very well. And yet the truth is that health goes way beyond that. And the disappointing thing that we see is that many of the weight loss programs are not health-focused programs. They do not have an underlying philosophy of helping a person improve their well-being. So fat loss, by any means as such, and without understanding transitionary effect into long-term wellness and reaching a higher level of wellness. So And also in a quest to eat less, to lose weight, people have actually become nutritionally deficient. So we see people come to us and join our community, and they've said they've tried this diet and they've tried this diet and they've tried this diet, and basically their metabolic system is all busted up and depleted in nutrition. And when they get onto a decent nutritional and detox protocol, what happens is that they start to lose their cravings and their body starts to naturally rebalance, and they start to say, oh, I feel better than I have in 20 years before I started all this dieting. Yes. And this is the challenge. Many people out there are, because, you see the before and after results. You see all these photos that circulate around and you just sort of think, oh, I'd like to be like that. And if it's just about losing fat, which is basically treating the symptom, then you're not going to be better off in the long run. We have to have a holistic wellness-based philosophy, and that's what we're here doing in the Savvy team. We're really putting together a holistic wellness and disease prevention support structure so that as a community, there's people around you really helping each other to reach that maximum level of wellness. So come join us. I think you'll be glad you did. All right. So focusing on just body weight can be counterproductive, as I said. This is certainly the areas where we put on fat is important to pay attention to. So, for example, if you're developing a lot of belly fat, a lot of visceral fat, so fat really around the middle, that's not so good. The fat under your skin, the subcutaneous fat, is not as bad. Obviously, you might want to lose that to look more slim and everything, but you've got to take into account the context of things going on. But certainly, central obesity is a big issue. So just, it's not even important what's on the scale, what it says on the scale. What's more important is getting a tape measurement out, measuring around your navel circumference, so around your waist. I usually go around your belly button, straight around there. Some people say it's a bit below, a bit above, but it's pretty easy to match it up with your belly button. And if that measurement is more than half your height, okay, more than half your height, so this is the waist to height ratio we're looking at, then you're at a higher risk of disease. So therefore, it's not just about how you look in the skinny jeans and everything with the muffin top or whatever else. It's actually about your health too. So, but health is about more than weight, and weight management is also about more than just the way you look in the mirror too. So if you are looking for a program to help you to detox and really look and feel your best, then our detox protocol can really help you there. And we match that up with the Eat Savvy diet. And so you might feel like this fella here, that I think I need the Eat Savvy diet and detox plan because I could be unstoppable if I could just get started. All right, so the next one on our list here, the next thing we have to talk about is people with type 2 diabetes shouldn't follow a high-carb diet, okay? These are all, everything pictured here. I just did a Google search on Diabetic Living magazine, and this is what I found. So just scan your eyes around here, and so in other words, this is a magazine specifically to help diabetics live healthier. And I see cakes and pizzas and pancakes and all sorts of things in here that are rich in carbohydrates. I don't believe that this organization is trying to help a person to control their diabetes. That's what I mean, within the system. These people are within the system. And I just don't believe it. It's scary, really. So for decades, people have been advised to eat a low-fat diet with carbs making 50 to 60% of their calories. And yet people with type 2 diabetes are resistant to insulin. So let's just take type 1 out of the picture altogether, because that's like less than 5% of people with diabetes. Let's just say that. So I understand, if someone is a diabetic, an insulin-dependent diabetic and brittle diabetic and all that sort of thing, then you obviously have to work with a medical professional to balance your situation there. We have seen people dramatically change their diet and get dramatic results, but they've been used to self-regulating. So But for most people who are newly diagnosed as diabetics or whatever, and type 2 diabetics, they don't really know. They don't even understand what's going on. And they're told by their doctor, just take this medication and you'll be right. So people with type 2 diabetes are resistant to insulin. So any carbs will cause a big rise in blood sugar levels. So, you know, the question is, why don't we tell diabetics the truth? And I'll talk about that in just a moment. But this, surprisingly, this advice continues. And so, type 2 diabetics can't really tolerate starch, can't tolerate easily digestible starches and refined starches. And yet, while they might reduce sugar, they might then just have a couple of slices of bread, which break down into just as much of a sugar spike than the sugar, albeit maybe a little slower. So, and then that's why they end up taking these sugar-lowering drugs to bring down the blood sugar. So, look, I thought that this was great. I came across this article by a registered dietitian, Diana Rogers, and this was on Rob Wolf, and he's a paleo diet promoter, and this is what she said. So this is again, I commend any person within the system who breaks free, because it's very difficult. I've spoken to different dietitians and they still recommend what I was told 20 years ago to balance my blood sugar, to eat carbohydrates more frequently throughout the day. And it's just, I believe it's wrong advice. But here's what registered dietitian said in her article. I'm appalled at the information we nutritional experts are telling folks with diabetes. So this is from a registered dietitian who's basically breaking free from the dogma. She says it's all over the place. They say everything in moderation, and how we need to eat less meat, less fat, and more whole grains. It's a pervasive theme drilled into young dietitians and spread through the public through our dietary guidelines, and the information is making people sick. Last week, the following popped up in my Facebook news feed. 10 foods that are great for diabetics. This is a clickbait article that makes the rounds across other sites as well. Here are the foods, things such as dates, berries, apples, oats, melons, kale, and barley. I think there are some other foods in there too, but this list is like telling alcoholics to drink a little more orange juice or just sprinkle some chia seeds in their martini, and omitting the fact that they need to stop drinking the booze. And this is the thing, if we look at it like that, so an alcoholic, you can't just, if you're an alcoholic, you can't just reduce and only have everything in moderation. You need to eliminate the alcohol to get rid of those cravings. It's the same thing with smokers. They can't just have a cigarette every now and then. Usually it's like they've got to quit. And it's the same thing with diabetics. You can't just have a little bit, everything in moderation, like seemingly promoted by the Diabetic Living magazine. You've got to stop it. You've got to dramatically decrease it to get into control. This is what registered dietitian is saying, who's broken free from the dogma. She continues on saying, in our quest to avoid the truth and focus on individual superfoods that can save us, it's telling diabetics that dates are so amazing because 7 of them provide 4 grams of fiber. And they forgot to mention that 7 dates equals 126 grams of carbs with no fat. So that's pretty much like a syringe shot of sugars directly into the bloodstream if eaten on an empty stomach. Why aren't we instead telling them to avoid excess carbohydrates? Because the last time I checked, you can actually reduce your blood sugar by not eating sugars. So that's what a registered dietitian is saying, and this is the thing. She's talking from within the system, saying, why aren't we telling diabetics the truth? But people with type 2 diabetes shouldn't follow a high-carb diet. So again, obviously, if you are struggling, you have to work with if you're on medication, you have to work with your doctor on this. But have a look at the 12 steps for getting started on the Eat Savvy diet. Download the cheat sheet, really, and start to follow more of that and reduce your carbohydrate index. There's lots of doctors and medical professionals who are really recommending more of a ketogenic, low-carb approach, or at least a whole food approach to manage diabetes and you can really make a huge impact on your life if you do it. Now, if you're struggling with cravings, what we have found in our community is it's a mineral imbalance. You need more trace minerals, and this is where supplementation really comes in. So there are also some certain things such as, chromium and cinnamon and zinc and these sorts of specifics that can balance your cravings. And so we use some products that can help there. So if you find yourself just like hungry and always craving sugars or salty foods and all that sort of thing all the time, that could be just a mineral imbalance. So we can correct that, and then you'll find life much easier. All right, the next one is sugary drinks are the most fattening product in the modern diet. The most fattening product in the modern diet. Excess sugar can be detrimental to health, and getting it in liquid form is the worst. Of all the junk foods, sugar-sweetened drinks and beverages and all these sorts of things are likely to be the most fattening. And the problem with sugar in a liquid form is that your brain doesn't compensate for the calories by eating less of other foods. It's sort of like straight into the system, almost not registering it as a food. So we just consume more and more and more, and it triggers our insulin, spikes and cravings and all these sorts of things. So your brain doesn't register. You could almost say that your brain doesn't register these calories, making you basically eat more overall. So definitely avoid the sugary sweetened drinks. But that leads us to the next one, and that is that fruit juice isn't that different from sugary soft drinks. So we're almost told to go for, like a healthy whole grain sandwich and a juice on the side. That's much better than having, a hamburger and a soft drink. Well, to a certain degree it is, but not from the point of view of the sugar spike. So many people do believe that fruit juice is healthier because it comes from fruit, but, if you're trying to avoid these excess sugars for health reasons, you should probably avoid the fruit juice as well. Because juice offers no chewing resistance, there are negligible amounts of fiber. It's basically, again, another shot of sugar into the system. And so just looking at a glass of orange juice contains as much sugar as 2 whole oranges. If you've ever seen the movie That Sugar Film, what they tried to do there is show that even if you move to a supposedly healthy diet, what he did in that particular movie is actually moved to a healthier. He only ate for a period of time things that were supposed to be healthy, marketed as healthy, and he still ended up with insulin resistance and a fatty liver and all that side by drinking juices and eating foods that were marketed as health foods. He ended up sick from doing that. So again, we've got to be careful about the marketing and the belief that a juice is healthier than a soft drink. Neither is beneficial. A juice probably is slightly healthier, but it depends on your goals. So if you're trying to avoid sugar for health reasons, avoid the fruit juice as well. Now, the next nutritional fact that should be common sense, but is not, is that eggs are one of the healthiest foods that you can eat. So eggs have been unfairly demonized because their yolks are high in cholesterol. So we're back to that lipid hypothesis for heart disease again, and that cholesterol and saturated fat causes heart disease, which is not correct. So studies that include hundreds of thousands of people have shown that eggs have little or no effect on heart disease. So, this is an interesting one, that actually eggs are very nutritious, and so one of the other myths is that we should eat more of the egg white because it's rich in protein, and so we eliminate the egg yolk, not recognizing that actually when we eat the two together, they have a micronutrient balance that actually provides a lot of benefit. So be careful about about that. But eggs, look, obviously if you are intolerant, some people are intolerant to eggs and can't eat that many eggs. Also, one of the easiest ways, so again, of course, it's not a health food for you if you're intolerant to it. If you are following, for example, one of the blood type diets, again, this is an interesting one because eggs don't suit all, too many eggs don't suit all blood types, and it's worthwhile having a bit of a conversation here about this whole blood type diet, because the blood type diet you may have heard about by Dr. D'Adamo, and what and he's a second generation person really looking at these the similarities in the types of eating patterns for different blood types. Now, I was mentioning before Dr. Berry, Dr. Ken Berry, and what he was saying related to the medical myths and all that sort of thing. Now, I did hear Dr. Berry sort of say that these fad diets like the blood type diet, are ridiculous. That's one of the things that he said. So not everybody can be on the same page. He believed that they are a fad type diet, and yet then in one particular interview, he sort of said that he went and had all of his genetics tested. So he had a full genetic profile, and he found out from where he came from, he would therefore do much better on a lower carbohydrate, more ketogenic and meat-rich diet. And so when he tried that, his health improved dramatically. He put on muscle tone, lost weight without even trying, without even going to the gym. That happened when he ate more in alignment with his genetic heritage. Now, and yet this same person sort of debunked the blood type diet. Well, ultimately, what they tried to do with the blood type diet is do a broad categorization of where you came from based on your blood type. So, while it's not exacting, you can go and donate blood and find out for free. If you're in the Australian region, Australian New Zealand region, I don't know about every region in the world, but you can easily find out your blood type and then know from following something that's similar, following a whole food, eat savvy approach that's close to your blood type diet, and you're eating more in line with your genetic heritage. So without having expensive genetic testing done. So, again, don't put down anything just because you don't understand it. I was one back when I was first educated, when the blood type diet first hit the market. I was a vegetarian, and I thought it was an absolute load of rubbish, and everybody should eat a vegetarian diet. Well, I was wrong. So don't ever be closed-minded, and be open to new information, being open to being wrong. So I went from, I'm an O-type, I went from someone who believed that vegetarianism was the best way to go and debunking the blood type diet, to finding out that I actually do better on meat products, and then finding out I'm an O-type, which means that genetically, historically, I evolved to eat more and get more nutrients from concentrated forms such as meat. So interesting, isn't it? So don't ever sort of just be so closed-minded and not open. I'm always learning. I'm always open, and we encourage you to do the same too. And that's why also the Eat Savvy approach is always adjusting as new information comes comes up, and new research is done, because there's nothing that we can say is fact forever. And this is one of the interesting things that they say even in the medical field. They sort of say that unfortunately, it is pretty much established that often old doctors have to die off before the new information becomes common knowledge. This is what we're dealing with. We've got to let go of some of the old information and take on the new research, but still keep in mind the historical understanding of where we came from, because that's where our genes have developed from. So it was a big eye-opening thing for me in my experience that, I was vegetarian, doing everything that everyone told me, eating healthy whole grains regularly, and I was not a poor diet vegetarian. I ate all the right things, cooked my own stuff, did the right things, used lentils and beans and all that sort of thing, and I didn't do very well. And that's because I wasn't eating in line with my heritage as such. So I only raised that because even other people, such as doctors who have made this breakthrough, Dr. Berry was saying the blood type diet's rubbish, and yet he himself found that his history was more of a meat eater, which probably means he's an O-type, which probably means that it fell in line. debunk it or not, if it works, then follow it. Anyway, I'm getting getting off track there, getting into a little bit too much information there. Let's go on with the next topic here. And so, since we were talking about eating more meat, now look, there are some natural. When we look at the O-type diet, there are some natural vegetarians, and so getting your blood type and reaching back out to us and say, hey, how should I tweak the Eat Savvy diet if I'm this blood type? Talk to us. Let's work out a plan, because it's very simple to, at least it's a simple way of knowing your heritage and eating in line with your heritage. So, meat doesn't rot in your colon. It's entirely false that meat rots in your colon and builds up in there. Okay, so, and like these stories about so-and-so had so much pounds of undigested red meat in their colon. No, they didn't. It's not the red meat. Yes, they may have had plaque. They may have had this toxic mucoidal plaque that can build up in the colon that we've seen, but it's not undigested meat. There's a lot of things that can create that, but your body is well equipped to digest and absorb all the nutrients found in meat. The protein gets broken down in your stomach, and by the acids there. And yes, that you may not digest things properly if you have a low acid stomach. The last thing you want to be doing is being on an antacid, because that will stop proper digestion, and it will also have a negative impact further down the line. People who are on antacids, for example, then end up with small intestinal, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and problems downline. They often have problems then with gallstones, etc. So again, if you're on an antacid, you want to deal with that. You don't really want to be on an antacid. But most of the fats, proteins, and nutrients that are in meat are absorbed by the body. Small amounts of protein and fat may escape digestion in healthy people, but there's not much that's left to rot in your colon. The bigger problem is if you have damaged your colon from eating too many grains, and there's a leaky gut situation with holes in your colon, so to speak. They're microscopic holes, but holes in the leaky gut. This is worse because the undigested food particles are getting into your bloodstream and triggering an immune reaction. So meat doesn't rot in your colon. And that also leads us to the sort of another misnomer here that if we were evolved to eat meat, then we would have different teeth and all that sort of thing. Look, I was educated in all of that when I was a vegetarian. And it's all not entirely. It's all used to back up whatever things being pushed at the time. So one thing that I do know is that those natural herbivores have a very enlarged stomach and a very much longer, larger intestine, because that's where the fermentation occurs and absorbs, and the bacteria ferment things to create nutrients. Well, we have a relatively short, large intestine and a much longer small intestine. And that means that we've evolved to actually absorb nutrients from more concentrated food sources than more of the fiber-rich food sources. So, meat doesn't rot in your colon, and we actually have evolved to eat meat, depending on your blood type, perhaps. Not only that, but many people go, well, hang on, but we shouldn't eat cooked meat because we don't have these big canine teeth like the carnivores have, where we chew and tear our meat. Yeah, but they also run on all fours and have to catch and kill with those teeth. So it's different. We have evolved to be able to use our brain to catch and hunt and kill and all that sort of thing. And then we've evolved with the discovery of fire to cook meats and all that sort of thing. So that's in our evolution. Our body has adapted to that. So it's silly to even think that we can't eat cooked meat because carnivores don't eat that. It's not to say that you can't consume a bit of raw meat every now and then. Some people do eat raw meats, but we have evolved to to eat that. And much of the studies that show that cooked meat causes cancer and everything have also been shown to be flawed, because the study used thousands of times the compounds that are produced, in charred meat, thousands of times that we would ever consume. And so, it doesn't make any logical sense from a natural evolutionary and dietary philosophy point of view to use those sorts of parameters. So anyway, so it's a myth, and certainly it's something that we need to get away from. The fact that we can't eat cooked foods and all that sort of thing. Now, it's true. I do believe that we have evolved to eat more. We need a blend. Looking at taking, and we've done some other classes where we've talked about the Pottinger's cats study, where with Pottinger's cats, he found that over a certain portion of cooked food, so 50-50 in cooked and raw, they did really, really well. They thrived. When it got down to 75% cooked and 25% raw, they didn't do so well. And when it was a 100% cooked and processed diets, the cats degenerated. So, even though we're not the same as cats, we could take that on and go, if we ate a 50-50 cooked and raw diet, we'd be probably good to go. And I do think that that's a safe bet based on all the evidence that I've seen. So try that. All right. What have we got now? We need to talk about feeding your gut buddies. The next nutritional fact is you need to feed your gut buddies for optimal health. Okay, you're really only about 10% human. The bacteria in your intestine, known as your microbiome or your gut flora, they outnumber your human cells 10 to 1. So this may be the most important reason to include a variety of plant matter in your diet to feed the beneficial bacteria in your intestines. Now, there are still some people that debunk this, that they're not sure on whether we really need this. So research into those in the keto and carnivore community, really, they see that people do very well even without the plant matter. So they wonder whether, again, we just evolve and our microbiome evolves to actually digest the food that we are consuming. So it's like, which comes first? The healthy diet or the healthy microbiome? And the research does seem to show that if you eat a healthy whole food diet, you'll be nourishing the microbiome that's there. Whereas if you eat a junk food diet that's full of processed food, you'll be enhancing the problematic bacteria that are more likely to cause inflammation and disease. So again, err on the side of the natural foods and away from the processed junk foods that are more likely to feed the yeasts and the damaging bacteria than the good guys. All right. Where did we get to there? Yeah. So feed your gut buddies the good, the good nutrition. A lot of the foods, a lot of these fiber-rich foods are for the gut buddies. So give them all everything that they need. And so the resistant starches are good for the gut buddies as well. So this is where, like, for example, you'll see on the Eat Savvy diet that we suggest for most people to avoid ripe bananas. And yet green bananas are on there. That's because green bananas are full of resistant starch. And that feeds that doesn't really digest as sugars. It passes through the system and feeds the gut bacteria. So that's what's called a resistant starch, which is good food for your gut buddies. All right, so the next one we'll talk about here is that don't blame new health problems on old foods. It's sort of a bit of a theme you may have got from this here, but the obesity epidemic started around the 80s, and type 2 diabetes epidemic followed soon after that. So scientists started blaming these epidemics on foods like red meat, eggs, and butter. And yet these foods have been part of the human diet for thousands of years. So don't blame these new epidemics on old foods. And then when you dig into the research and you see that the sugar industry actually paid scientists to put the blame on fat rather than sugar, you start realizing that all this supposed evidence-based nutrition is a little bit dodgy. And we need to think historically. We need to think sensibly. We need to think, deductively rather than just believe what's being promoted. That doesn't make any logical sense out there. So, you know, thousands of years we've been eating these natural foods. We've adapted to eating them, and yet these health problems are relatively new. And so some scientists are actually linking many of these diseases not just to sugar, but to the grain and seed oil increase, the consumption of these polyunsaturated vegetable oils that we've been told to eat, and all of the healthy whole grains. And not just those natural foods, but the fact that they are loaded, if they're from genetically modified crops, they're loaded with glyphosate, Roundup. And they've actually looked, I've showed in other sessions, I don't have them on me here, but graphs that actually track glyphosate exposure on crops to the diabetes, to obesity, to heart disease. It's scary. I mean, association does not mean causation, but they actually match better than many of the things that scientists are telling us. So this glyphosate exposure, and many scientists believe that it is the glyphosates damaging the microbiome, because here's the thing, the reason that they could get it approved is because the pathway, the way that it works as a pesticide and herbicide the pathway doesn't exist in us as humans. So therefore it won't affect us, is what they believe. But what it does change is the bacterial complement in our digestive system, so our whole gut microbiome. And many scientists believe that what the glyphosate is doing is totally damaging our gut microbiome, leading to the prevalence of disease. So again, you know, it might not be directly causative, but it's there. So again, what's the best available evidence? Avoid GMO crops. Avoid using glyphosate as much as you can. Eat more of the organic foods. If you can't afford organic foods, fair enough. If you don't eat grains and inflammatory seed oils, you're avoiding most of the crops that they use glyphosate on anyway. So even then, if you can't afford to eat organic vegetables and everything, you're dramatically decreasing your exposure by avoiding the packaged foods. So it's actually quite simple. And then later on, as your health improves, you can progress to, and maybe if budgetary constraints are lifted, you can move more towards eating more organic foods. And again, organic, here in the Savvy team, although organic is we really believe in. Again, if you had the choice, if I've got, and I've seen it before, I've been there. If I've got sort of an old wilted organic vegetable here that's got some spots on it that looks like it's sort of going moldy even, versus a traditionally fresh-looking, crisp-looking inorganic, stupid to say inorganic, but traditionally raised and grown vegetable, I would go for the fresher, traditionally raised in the short term rather than the wilted, old, dead-looking, potentially moldy organic one. Okay, so this is the thing. There's a balance, and that's what the Eat Savvy Diet's about. It's a sliding scale. We've got to look at the beneficial impact versus the negative impact of any food. So every food isn't good or bad, but it has components, what we call positive and negative bio-influences, positive and negative influences on our biology. And so we need to balance that, okay? And the reason we call it bio-influences is because, we're being influenced each and every day by the things that we eat, what we're exposed to, and all that sort of thing. And look, by the way, if you want to see a good correlation of how your epigenetic profile, how the cells of your body are dealing with these influences, then get one of our bio-influence analysis hair tests, especially if you're in the Australian region. If you're coming in from another region around the world, we can't do the hair test at the special price that we offer, but certainly just reach out to us and we can probably put you in touch with someone in your market, and then you can connect back in with what we're doing. Anyway, that's the bio-influence report hair test I'm talking about. It's a simple, non-invasive hair test that tests your basically epigenetic markers to see what positive and negative bio-influences are going on for you right now. So don't blame these new health problems on old foods. It doesn't make any logical sense. And it also doesn't make logical sense to not supplement. So supplementation makes logical sense. Vitamins and minerals are essential nutrients. They perform hundreds of roles in the body. And whilst definitely eating a healthy diet and eating a savvy diet and getting all the micronutrients that we need from your diet is ideal, do you eat an ideal diet? So do you eat a perfect diet all the time? You never go out to eat. You never get stressed. You never get poor amount of sleep. You never eat a packaged food. You never drink alcohol. You never do anything. You live in a pristine environment and you don't need to worry about any chemicals finding your body in any way, shape, or form. You're not actually connecting in to us via a piece of technology that's zapping your cells of your body. So you live a perfect, pristine life. If you live a perfect, pristine life on some deserted island and you're not watching this show and you have all the food you need, then you probably don't need to supplement. But otherwise, if you're living in a normal world, then supplementation just makes logical sense. So, we concur that eating real food is the best way to get get our nutrients. But what we need to do is we need to supplement that perfect diet, as best as we can to make sure that we're not deficient in any nutrients. So this is, we've just spoken about a whole bunch of myths that mean that we can end up deficient. The soils have been identified as being deficient. And so if the minerals aren't in the soil, they don't make it into our food. Even organic food may be lower in pesticide residue, but it's not guaranteed to be higher in minerals. And again, if it's not vine ripened, it's not going to be higher in antioxidants, all of these sorts of things. So if we want to live in the Western developed world and we're not going to be growing our own vegetables and nourishing the soil and doing everything perfectly, then supplementation just makes logical sense, because we're all sort of lacking in nutrition in some way, shape, or form. Or there's not one person who doesn't need to optimize their nutrition, really. And so when we think about I've shared in other sessions the work of Dr. Weston Price and what he found by visiting many different cultures that all had different foods all around the world, all in their pristine, undeveloped situation. So they were in some way, shape, or form locked off from the Western world. So they were eating their absolute natural diet. And he was a dentist and he was analyzing the structure of their jaw, the health of their teeth, how many cavities they had, the prevalence of disease, and comparing it to cultures of the same region that were exposed to white man's food, so to speak. And in every single case, he found that those cultures who ate the natural diet for their region had healthy, straight teeth naturally, without orthodontics. They had little or no cavities, often never having cleaned their teeth. And he saw this as a stark contrast to what he was experiencing in his Cleveland clinic in the US, where he was practicing as a dentist. And so when he took back samples of the foods and analyzed them, he found that the foods were, like at least 4 times more trace mineral than in the diet compared to the most Western cultures, and 10 times the fat-soluble vitamins, such as vitamin A, vitamin D, those sorts of things. So what can we learn from that? Well, there were a lot of things that these cultures were doing. They supplemented not in the type of supplements that we have, but in a different way. They had bone broths. They were encouraged to eat liver regularly, or the organ meats of the animal, for example. They had fermented foods. They did these sorts of things which were original supplements. And you just think about it. What did great-grandma tell you to do, or grandma or whatever? You probably had to, if you're old enough, you probably had to have a dose of cod liver oil. Early supplement. You probably ate lamb's fry, liver, organ meats at some point. They're richer in nutrition. That's an early form of supplement. You probably, if you got cranky as a child, you might have been told you need a dose of salts. and that was magnesium sulfate. That's a magnesium supplement. You were stressed out and angry, and your liver was you needed a dose of salts to clean out your liver and get some magnesium into your system to help you out. Now, much of the research also, that's magnesium sulfate, much of the research, for example, that Professor Stephanie Seneff is finding is that we're deficient in sulfur. And many of our problems are, because of that. And that's why, could have been why the magnesium sulfate worked. We actually got a dose of magnesium and we got a dose of sulfate. So these were all early supplements. So it's crazy for any logical person to say all you need is a balanced diet, supplementation is a waste of money. Essentially, at some point in time, we're going to need to supplement. Food is ideal, but then we need to supplement our diet at some point. And so we do see a need for supplementation. And, obviously here in the Savvy Team, we recommend and promote supplementation. So you can take all of what I say with a grain of salt, but I'm trying to give you a logical thought process here about you're probably not eating liver. You're probably not eating your bone broth every day. You're probably not taking a dose of salts. You're probably not getting your cod liver oil. You're probably not getting all these nasty things that we were told we needed back in the day. So we can take more, supplementation in easier to take ways. So it was said by was said a long time ago that 99% of people are deficient in minerals, and that a marked deficiency in any one or more of these important minerals actually results in disease. This was reported to the US Senate in 1936. So they were aware of this. It's a logical thing that if we are deficient, our cells won't work properly. Now, how does that relate to you? Well, according to government statistics, 9 in 10 adults aged 19 and over do not eat the recommended number of veggies. So if we're supposed to if all we need is a perfect balanced diet, and yet 9 in 10 people don't even eat enough vegetables, then who is anyone eating a perfect diet? And they've directly linked diseases to lack of minerals. Let's just look at minerals and not look at vitamins and all those sorts of things, because minerals cannot be synthesized by the body. They have to be in the diet or from supplementation. That's why trace mineral supplementation is the cornerstone of many of our programs here in the Savvy Team, because it just makes logical sense. So, do you have a heart condition? Do you have chronic bronchitis? Do you have bone issues? Do you have a problem with your smell and taste? Do you have a problem with detoxification? All of these things, minerals are implicated in the functioning of many aspects of the body. Now, rather than trying to supplement like one thing or another, like we hear all the time, the prostate needs zinc. And so, I have a problem with my prostate, so I better take some more zinc. Well, that's a good idea, but then what about something else appears? I have a problem with manganese because my nervous system's not right. I better get onto some manganese, okay? So again, if you you'll be forever at it if you're trying to take this and then that and this and then that. So that's why a natural trace mineral drink is something that we recommend each and every day. It just, again, makes logical sense for those who really want to optimize their health and well-being. So supplements help you with the nutrient shortfall. So this is, again, from government statistics, looking at the 5 food groups. Now, this includes vegetables, fruit, grains, meat, and dairy. Now, here in the Savvy Team, we would assert that the recommendation of 9 to 11 servings of grains is too much. That is not ideal. But so if we would eliminate that, again, most people still don't eat enough vegetables, don't eat enough fruit, don't eat enough meat, and don't eat enough dairy to get all the recommended nutrients. So supplementation makes logical sense. Ladies, you're not doing any better. The stats still show that you're eating plenty of grains, plenty of fruit. Well, isn't that interesting? Plenty of the things that put weight on you, that are basically designed to put weight on you. What would an animal in the wild feed up on before it hibernates in the winter? It feeds up on fruit. What do they give animals to fatten them up before slaughter? Grains. We're basically eating enough of the things that fatten us up for slaughter. So yeah, we need to change things around if we want optimal nutrition, and it makes logical sense to supplement, in my opinion. And that's why, when we look at what we here in the Savvy team assert, that there are two fundamental or underlying causes of most poor health. That's too much toxicity going on in the world and a lack of nutrition. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to decrease the toxicity. We need to increase the nutrition. And so, you might go, well, how do I know whether I have too much toxicity and a lack of nutrition? How do I know whether that might be me? Well, the thing is that these things, it's now been identified with research into the mitochondria and how the mitochondria, the powerhouses of our cells, function, that they're very sensitive to damage. So toxins damage mitochondrial function. Lack of nutrition damages mitochondrial function. So if we were to decrease chemical load and increase nutrition, will actually help the mitochondrial function, these inner powerhouses of our cells. And research is showing that the mitochondria talk with the microbiome. So the microbiome, the gut bacteria in your gut, are sort of like the little dudes on the front line, feeding back to the mitochondria inside the cells what's going on in the diet. So these are buddies in and of themselves, and they have a little bit of an interplay going on here. And so when you've got too much toxicity and not enough nutrition getting into through your supplementation and diet, your gut buddies are actually sending messages across to your mitochondria to alert them. And so how might you feel if you've got too much toxicity, not enough nutrition? Well, you might feel like your battery's flat all the time. You might find that you're asleep at work or foggy at work. You might find that you're not dealing with the stresses of daily life. You might feel that you get forgetful or dozy or have aches and pains, and you feel older than you feel a bit older than you should. Or, you just don't want to talk to anyone. You're just not dealing with some aspect of your life. And that's why we love what Dr. Molly Roberts said. Your body will start by whispering. Then it'll start talking. And if you don't pay attention, it'll start yelling and shouting. But then you have an illness. So some of these early warning signs of tiredness and not dealing with things, or too much stress, or skin problems, or, your hair falling out or whatever, these are all warning lights that are coming up on your dashboard. You don't have a dashboard like you do in the car, but they're warning lights. And what most people do is they want to attack the symptoms rather than address and correct the underlying cause. So what we assert here as part of our illness-wellness continuum, that if you just treat the signs and the symptoms with medication or one thing or another, you're never going to reach a high level of wellness. You're never going to feel well and on top of things. You're actually just going to be reaching that not sick point. But whatever you're doing currently to deal with signs and symptoms, a wellness paradigm can take you well beyond that to a high level of wellness. And that's what we guide you to do here in the Savvy team. So symptoms are not enemies to be destroyed, but they're sacred messengers who encourage us to take better care of ourselves. So, are you running on empty? This was the last session that we did. You may not be getting enough of these important nutrients for optimal health. So you can go back and check out that last episode of the show where we talked through this, are you running on empty? And where we talked about the fact that there are 90 nutrients that your body needs each and every day to optimize your system. And so really, we encourage you to invest in yourself. Actually invest in yourself through nutrition and a good diet, because then you're going to feel better, you're going to live longer, and you're going to be able to contribute to more people around you when you look after yourself. What do they say in the airlines? If you've ever flown, they say fit your own oxygen mask first before helping other people. So we're encouraging you to do that now. You may be involved in a job or a career or whatever where you're helping other people. Well, what are you doing to nourish yourself and even nourish your poor old mitochondria and all that sort of thing? So nourish yourself first. It was interesting. I was told when I was working in the restaurant industry and had a cleaning business, I was really busy. I was working 7 days a week, and working in the busy restaurant industry, when I was having blood sugar problems and adrenal burnout and everything when I was younger and more sick, I'm older and feeling healthier. Isn't that interesting? Because when you take control, things change. But anyway, I digress. Um, there was somebody that told me, a practitioner that I was seeing for acupuncture, really acknowledged this particular advice. I would be struggling with blood sugar problems, and if I didn't eat, if I skipped a meal, I would get massive headaches. It would just be like blood sugar low, headaches, and so working in a busy restaurant, I was always really easy for me to. There wasn't a time that I had lunch. And if there was things to do, I would just keep going and realize I'll deal with the problems later. I'll put up with the headache or whatever, rather than saying, no, I need to look after myself. And this person said, Corey, that's a sign of a low self-esteem that you're not willing to take time out to nourish yourself. I was like, I didn't think that I had a low self-esteem. I did not self-identify with having a low self-esteem. But when I really thought about it, if I wasn't willing to take time and nourish myself, if I wasn't willing to invest in myself in supplements, if I wasn't willing to look at how I could look after myself first before serving everybody else, then I actually was reflecting a low self-esteem. So I took that on board and really realized that, well, maybe that was the thing. I didn't value myself enough to invest in myself. That's what I'm really encouraging you to realize here. You may not have thought about supplementation as part of your budget, but it's just in this day and age, if you want good health, you want optimal health, it's just finding that, giving up something else of a lower nature to be able to invest in yourself. Whether that be time, money with supplements and all that sort of thing, before you go and help everybody else and, etc. maybe supplementation and a healthier diet is more important than the new fridge to store all the supplementation and healthy diet. Sometimes, it's sometimes we make these choices, and I just encourage you to invest in yourself. So, that brings up this whole issue that I did raise last time on the show, the safety of complementary wellness products. And I wanted to delve into that a bit more. I talked about it a little bit last time, but that I shared this particular societal risk in Australia. These are Australian statistics looking at the risk of, fatalities from complementary medicine and natural healthcare products compared to other things. And this graph that was put together here, looking at societal risk versus individual risk, in the medication arena, there's a lot of the risks that relate to society. So many medications don't necessarily help you; they only statistically help. So, for example, the NNT number, I think, is in the 300s. That's the number needed to treat, is in the 300s for cholesterol medication. That means 300 people need to be treated before one person is helped by the medication. That means 300 or more people have to be damaged by the side effects before one person is helped. Whereas with nutrition, you are helped because it helps with the shortfall. Okay, changing your diet and lifestyle helps you. Medication is very different because it's only statistically relevant. And so it's an interesting one when we really delve into that. But that's what this research was looking at, or this graph putting together numerous sources from different databases and reports. So that's the increasing risk to society and the increasing risk of the individual along the bottom there. And so basically the risk of complementary medicine, supplements, all of this sort of thing that we're talking about is so small that it doesn't print on this graph. You're more likely to drown in your own bathtub than you're likely to be damaged by taking any nutrition. So you're more likely to have an acute disaster from a food that you ate than from a supplement. So, we've got to realize that this is insanely safe. And so, another thing that I wanted to basically show you here is looking at it from this point of view and the actual risk. They actually looked at the risk relative to a single flight on a 747. So so your risk of death, you're 2,333 times more likely to die from going to hospital than you are from a flight. But look, So again, when we look at relative risk, it's very interesting. But I did the numbers there, looking at that and comparing some of the things that they put on the graph here. So you're 70,696 times more likely to die from a preventable adverse effect of medical care in a hospital while you're in the hospital where they can save you than you are from taking any natural healthcare supplement or therapeutic product, according to these statistics. You're 14,151 times more likely to die from a preventable drug reaction in a hospital than you are from taking any natural healthcare and complementary product. 14,000 times more likely to die from a preventable drug reaction in the hospital where they can save you. You're in the hospital. 14,000 times more likely. You're 575 times more likely to be harmed by food that you eat than from a natural healthcare and therapeutic product. So if you see any ridiculousness, going back to number one in the media, don't believe the media headlines. If you see any ridiculousness, I'd probably say about the safety of complementary products, I'd just probably say stop watching that channel, because they are not interested in you. They're interested in selling eyeballs, really. Anyway, don't get me started. You got me started. So anyway, look, that's why in here in the Savvy Team, we like to say it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Wellness can be as easy as 1, 2, 3. Decrease toxin exposure from all avoidable sources. So alter your diet, change to safer personal care products, avoid chemicals wherever you can. It just makes logical sense. And often this is just a transfer spend. You're not spending anything extra. You're just shopping from safer brands. You're making more sensible choices with packaged food, that sort of thing. Increase your nutrition. Aim for the 90 nutrients your body needs daily, and we encourage you to supplement at least with trace minerals and maybe a good multivitamin and antioxidant blend. Optimize then your detox pathways and your general body systems, and that's what all of our wellness programs are designed to do, to really help you to, not only do these two, but to really especially up the lack of nutrition. And if you are looking for a plan that helps you to really maximize the nutrition, then that's what our Savvy 90 plan is about. It's about helping you to get all the 90 nutrients that your body needs each and every day to make sure that you're not deficient in any of these important micronutrients such as vitamins and macro minerals, trace minerals, antioxidants, essential fatty acids, and then also things such as the green superfoods, which really support detoxification and balancing the body systems as well. This is what's pictured here as our core plan. We also have the basics plan for those on a tighter budget, and an ultimate plan for those who really want to maximize the support and anti-aging. So if you really want to hear more about the trace minerals and the sort of source that we use, then ask for our minerals MP3. Just message us on Facebook. If you're listening to this as a podcast version or on YouTube and everything, message us on the Savvy Team Facebook page. And just ask for the minerals MP3, and we can get that across to you, because we used to have this on an actual CD, but we're putting that together so that we can just put it in a other way that we can send to you for free. So instead of sending you the CD, we can send it across to you in Messenger. Maybe you feel like our friend here, that I think I need the Savvy 90, because I'd be unstoppable if I could just get started. But look, for your best wellness journey, you'll want a plan, you'll want some specific solutions, you'll want guidance, and you'll want community. And that's what we're here to do for you, or do with you as your partners, really, as your guides in this journey. So request an invitation into our community and we'll get you started on the process. So when you request an invitation, you'll be able to fill out a How Can We Help survey. And that's basically a confidential and brief survey to help find out what are the things that you're wanting to know about. And that really helps us to point you in the right direction of the action plans and programs that would most suit your needs. So look, if you have any question about the material and how to take action, then that's what we're here for. So reach out to your Savvy Team contact, your wellness guide. If you already have one, they'll be glad to assist you. But look, if you want to improve anything, like if there's something about your health and wellness that you would like to improve, we can definitely guide you there. And our programs are really for those whose most pressing needs are to get the results, and you sort of want to understand later. You're ready to let go of all the dogma. So they're not really for but why this, but why that, but why that. It's an interesting one. I commend you for really being here and looking at the show and looking at this particular information or listening to this, on the podcast, because so many people say things like this: just tell me what I need to do. And so we say, well, here's the action plan. Do that. And they say, because I don't have time to listen to all of an hour-long show or whatever. I don't have time for that. Just tell me what I got to do. And then we say, well, just do this. And then they say, yeah, but why do you do that? And why do you do that? And why do you do that? And I don't understand that. And how come? And how come? It's like, that's why you need to watch the material, because it explains all that. So, sometimes we all want things compressed into the smallest amount of time, but that's not how we learn. It's not how we learn and we grow. We learn and we grow by being able to digest things and understand and then apply and see the benefits. So, we do whatever we can here in the Savvy team to make things simple and short and easy for you to digest, but sometimes you just need the extra information, and that's what we're here to do for you and give you on the show here, on other free web classes, on our webinars, our master classes, and the like. So, but look, inside our private wellness community, we have all these sorts of things laid out. So once you're a full member, you'll have access to all of that. So come join us. I think you'll be glad you did. So again, I'll leave you with this. It's important that you're aware that all of what I've been sharing reflects our personal research, and so do take notice of this important notice. But that being said, really, really important to take this on, that today, that health is a choice. And so take this on, that today I choose to be healthy. Okay? Today I choose to be healthy. And look, congratulations for joining us and investing the time in yourself to be part of the show. And if you if you feel that this has been important information, then please do share this with someone that you care about who might need to know this information too. So congratulations for being with us for the healthy side of the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. We're going to jump on into talking about the Wealthy and Wise section right now, and we're going to be talking about the 5 stages of personal growth. 5 stages of personal growth. And you're already showing us, if you're here, that you're venturing through these stages. So welcome to the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. If you have just joined us, we're here to help you enjoy improved health and lifestyle. And we're really big on holistic health. And so this is where it's like interesting that, holistic health and well-being is not just, is where the whole person, you as a whole person, is focused on, not just the issue. So here in the Savvy team, we're not interested in treating the issue or whatever. We don't treat anything. We're looking at helping you reach a higher level of health and lifestyle. And that upholds that all of your psychological, physical, and social aspects of your life to be taken into account. And that's why we love this holistic wellness wheel here, where it recognizes all of that. And we recognize that personal growth and understanding about self-change and self-responsibility and developing yourself as a person and tapping in with other people is so important on your journey. It's not just taking something and getting there. It's about being part of the process, holistic well-being here. So, we often get questions like, what have you got for this? Or what have you got for that? That's again showing coming from the treatment paradigm, not the holistic wellness paradigm, where we look to, supply the body with what it needs to heal. Let's just go to, when you break a bone, did the doctor heal you? Or did the doctor set the bone in so that your natural healing processes could then take over? Obviously, the doctor just helped to set the bone. So we're very lucky that we have the acute medical care that can take care of the acute damage and then let the natural processes of the body take over. So why is it that we don't have that same fundamental approach with the rest of things? We have it with injury, but we don't have it with disease and well-being. We don't look to the root cause of the things, and we don't look to support. Well, we do. I should say we do. And if you're part of our community, you know that we do. But I'm saying all them, they don't look to the underlying holistic wellness things. But anyway, so look, we really do believe that your most valuable asset is you. And so investing yourself is really important. So congratulations for investing time to be here on the show. And I want to go through what we call these 5 stages of personal growth. And so whether, there's a little bit of a crossover here in not just the personal growth side of things, but also in the health and well-being side of things. But this is more from the point of view of changing yourself and growing as a person, not really just from the health point of view. So when you think about it, when you're a teenager or a kid or whatever, you often self-identified as the grey, didn't you? You identified as the I'm a grade 5 or I'm a grade 8 or whatever, and so you didn't you sort of had confidence in what that meant. You were in a very strong learning phase and growing phase, so it's not as if you were stuck in your stuff, but you didn't sort of try to worry about, the next year. You weren't trying to be a grade 8er when you were just a grade 7er. You didn't try to get ahead of yourself that much. You just took it as it came, and you learned and you grew, and you gave yourself permission to learn and grow and not feel like you should be here and you should be there and you should be there. You didn't take on the shoulds. You didn't should on yourself. And you do know about that lost commandment, thou shalt not should on thyself. Anyway, so you didn't, I should be further ahead, I shouldn't have done that, I should be here by now. You realized you were where you were where you were as such. Then you become, you sort of gave yourself permission to be okay where you're at. And then you become all grown up, and somehow you manage to take on the fact that everything should happen in a certain way, and it should be this, and it should be that, and I should have been here by now, and you're constantly shooting on yourself. And, even though you're continually learning and growing yourself now, I think what often happens is we don't give ourselves permission to just be where we're at and recognize that we're just in a certain phase. And that's what these phases are really about. It's sort of, there's multiple phases and there's multiple steps in the journey. So this is a sort of a bit of a categorization about where things can lay into just 5 stages. And it's not as simple as that. There's layer upon layer upon layer of growth. There's steps in every journey, but it's important to just be okay where you're at whilst looking for the next step. So let's go through these five phases. Now, the first phase is what my original teacher in the healing field called unconsciousness. And we might call this being asleep. We might call this being powerless. We might call this being, you don't know what you don't know. You're just stuck, right? You don't see any way out. You don't feel like there's any way. Chances are, if you're here, you're already past or nearly past this phase. Because if you're asleep, you wouldn't have even resonated with what we do here in the Savvy team. It wouldn't click with you. But I bet you do remember that, when your programs and your fears really ruled you, when, you've been stuck in stuff in the past. Perhaps you didn't feel like you had any control over a certain situation that happened in your life. You felt victim. You felt like you were stuck. There was no obvious way out. You just felt powerless and stuck, and it's not fair, and life was against you, and those sorts of things. So that's this stage. That's this stage where, you don't know what you don't know, but you feel powerless, like a victim, stuck in your stuff, and you're asleep, really. And then when we move to the next phase, which we could call waking up, when you think about when you're asleep, you don't know what you don't know. You're just asleep, actually asleep at nighttime. You've disconnected from the world, so all of the momentum of your life has stopped and you've sort of disconnected. And then you wake up and there's that awakening and you suddenly become consciously aware. Overnight, you just trusted. but you were unconscious to what was going on, and then you woke up. Now, this awakening or this waking up, think about it like when you're waking up in the morning. You're out of consciousness when you're sleeping, and then perhaps when you wake up, you're feeling a bit groggy. The thoughts of the day start to come to you. You're aware of what's going to be happening for the day, what responsibilities you have, and this is where you're starting to take conscious control. And so it's the same thing in the phases of life. When you then start to say, hang on, I'm no longer happy with the way my life is, and I want to start taking some control. There's this awakening that goes on where you realize, but that could be your health. You go, hang on, I'm not happy with the way things have been going here. I wonder whether there's a way for me to improve my health and lifestyle. That's where we have a lot of people that come to what we do here in the Savvy team, because they're having that awakening and they're realizing that they can take action. They're discovering more of this self-responsibility. And so that may be health, or it may be some aspect of your career or your personal life or whatever, where you have this awakening and you realize that, no, I'm not a victim. I can do something here. And so, sometimes you feel, when you think about the waking up in the morning, sometimes you feel like rolling over and going back to bed, right? It's just like, oh, I don't want to face it. Well, that's what the unconsciousness, the powerless sort of phase of life is like, where people don't want to face their life. They don't want to take self-responsibility. And chances are, as I said, if you're here, you're already probably moving into that awakening phase, or at least even maybe past that. So this is where when you're wanting to go back to bed, that's that analogy there. So when you're wanting to go back to the way it was before, where someone else took care of you, or you weren't really responsible for your own well-being and all that sort of thing, that's like wanting to go back to unconsciousness, go back to the old programming, go back to safety, rather than actually taking responsibility and moving forward with your life. So, sometimes this can happen when you've got a whole bunch of things that you've expected and you've been disappointed. So you've sort of branched out and taken action, but then you've been battered around by life and by the expectations that you thought you could get done and all that sort of thing. And so you sort of start wanting to go back to safety. But it's just a matter of staying with that process of awakening and realizing that, yes, once you start to take control now, it's not to say that there's not going to be hiccups along your way. So this is an interesting phase, because what we see, this is a phase where you may even get angry, and that's not a bad thing. You may find yourself getting angry about the things that you were told that were myths, or the way you were held back in the past, and you start to blame others. And many people we've experienced, when they're having this awakening process, they actually get sort of frightened by the fact that they feel so much anger and blame and resentment and all that sort of thing. But that's a much more active emotion than being stuck in your stuff and being powerless. So it's not a bad thing. It's what we call moving upscale and moving to a higher vibration. So that's okay. It's okay. But this is the thing that's a disturbing thing in much personal growth seminars that I see. Many personal growth seminars and workshops look to elicit this change, look to get you out of unconsciousness and apathy and all that sort of thing into this anger phase where you start to blame the world around you. When it's not the world's fault, you are in control. So getting stuck in this, it's everyone's fault, it's my parents' fault, it's my past life's fault and everything. I'm not really big on that, because that's only partway along the journey. So it might be an awakening, but it's not true self-responsibility. So we're going to move to the next phase. Getting angry, getting active. That's being in this activist mindset. Like, I'm going to do something about that. That's good, but we're now going to move to the next phase, which is integration. Now, integration is where you shift from sort of hearing about this stuff, knowing about this stuff, learning about this stuff, to actually applying it and doing it, from knowing to doing. So you may have felt like you have a lot of information, there's a lot of things, and then you feel like, well, and you can go up and down these phases too in different aspects of your life. So you might feel like you know a lot. You might have, on the show, I know this stuff, and then you realize, but I'm not applying it. That's the thing. It's the integration. It's integrating the ideas and the knowledge that you've acquired into your life that then means it starts to work for you. So, so if you feel like you've been sort of stuck and you know a lot of this stuff, but nothing seems to be working, then you're probably in this integration phase, and it's time to roll up your sleeves and really start applying it, and not just know it. It's awareness is not transformation. Knowing about the stuff is not applying it. You have to change your beliefs and your behaviors. And it's sort of like, when you understand the way the mind works, the conscious and the subconscious, the conscious mind is where we can reason and we can come up with ideas. And the subconscious mind runs our programs. So we've got to get this new idea, this changed philosophy, to sort of become a program for us to be able to do it. And so how do we do that? Well, it's by staying with that, repeating it, developing our belief structure around that, by really rolling up our sleeves and doing. And this is where it's, where we have to let go of some of the old programs in order to supplant and put in the new programs. This is the integration, integrating new ideas and things in your life. And I say supplant because we can't really get rid of the old. We have to sort of dilute it with the new. It's very hard to just get rid of the old programs, but we can deactivate them by taking on new ideas. And that's what we're really all about in the Savvy team. It's like guiding you to new beliefs and new structures, new thoughts, tapping you in with the supportive community so that you can learn and grow and be around a different scope of people. So this is where there is a stage of courageousness here in this issue, where you're not letting some of the old stuff define you, and you're learning new skills and you're applying new skills. And this is sort of, I guess, the area of breakthrough. This is where the rubber meets the road, and where it's actually going, am I going to go back into safety where I get looked after by, I don't have to think about what's going on in my own health. I don't have to think about what's going on in my own life. I'll just do what people tell me to do and all that sort of thing. Or are you going to actually take self-responsibility and control? So this is where many people do step back into safety in terms of their career and life and all that sort of thing, in the general personal growth, but also in their health as well. They realize what we might call a healing crisis, where we're starting to break through to a new level. Now, you might find yourself in this issue getting sort of do-overs, getting a chance to do things in a new way. Situations reveal themselves and you have the chance to redo them with a new mindset. It's a really, really powerful time of breakthrough here. So you might find, chances are probably, if you're watching the show and everything, you probably find yourself in this integration situation where you're really trying to learn and adopt new behaviors and make new changes. So well done for being there and for being in that particular phase and for being here. So then we move into step number 4. Step number 4 is what I guess I like to refer to as acceptance and breakthrough, where the breakthrough is actually happening. So you've made new habits, you've started to change the way you're being, you're accepting more, and you may be even experiencing breakthroughs in health, in life, in different areas, in career, in the way you feel, in the way you deal with people around you. You're not a new person as such. A lot of people talk about like a whole new me. Well, you're never really a whole new you. I mean, even all of the cells of your body are constantly replacing themselves all the time, but they are replacing based on previous patterning. So you can make a transformation, there's no doubt, but you're not a whole new you. You're still you, but you're perhaps more open, you're more authentic, you're more connected, you're more in control, you're more adaptable, you're more fluid, you're at a higher vibration, you're ready to accept new things in this acceptance and breakthrough. And so this is where you stop fighting reality and start accepting or you either accept the way it is or change it. You realize that, I can make changes here. You're no longer a victim to the circumstances and you're no longer overreacting to things. You're realizing that you can take control in the moment or at some point in the future. So maybe you're in this acceptance and breakthrough phase number 4. And then we move to phase number 5, which is appreciation and service. This phase is really about that bigger vision, opening your vision up to be more about contribution, contributing to the lives of others, not necessarily even in action. So sometimes when we look to service, people think I've got to serve people. I'm serving and helping and doing it. It's not necessarily in that, because you serve people by just being the best version of you and not being a victim, not being back in unconsciousness, by being somebody that's at a higher level of vibration and feeling good and encouraging people and guiding them and pointing them and encouraging them to do, even if they're not doing, even if it's not the same as you, to encourage them to make the most of themselves. And this is really where I see that Maslow's hierarchy of needs sort of comes in. And when you're stuck in your stuff and you can't even deal with your own stuff, the last thing you want to do is have to deal with someone else's stuff and help them. So once you break through and you're invested in yourself and you're feeling good and you're moving forward and everything, then you start to focus on that contribution and that changing other people's lives. And, you might venture out into this appreciation and contribution and service and then venture back. We certainly see that in our community. We see people who become involved either in just our wellness community and they're helping other people and then they disappear back into their own stuff. Or we see people that they're even involved in the business of what we do here, really being wellness guides and helping other people. And they sort of make a bit of a splash out there, but then they go back into safety and their own stuff and everything. And that's okay. Everywhere you are where you are. But it's understanding that if you head back into safety, that is because you touched upon this appreciation and service and you didn't handle it well. So go back, nourish yourself, but don't disappear. Because when you disappear from that connectivity, then you're more likely to head back into unconsciousness and powerlessness and victimhood and all that sort of thing. You're more likely to have that pull back to the old programs. So stay connected would be my advice there. But, one of the things that's interesting about this process is, or this particular phase, is you do become more accepting of other people, more appreciative of what other people bring to the table, and more realizing that we're all different and that's okay. That's part of the benefit. And I love one of the constant things that my my original mentor in health and healing said. He used to say, we're all delightful deviations from the norm. And that was perhaps a nice political correct way of saying we're all different. We all believe different things, and that's all good. That's part of the benefit. We're all delightful deviations from the norm, meaning there is no normal. We're all somehow off kilter. And that's a good thing. It's our own unique perspective that blends. And that's the benefit of community. This is the interesting thing. The science and the actual research they've done about the safety in numbers, not safety in numbers, but the wisdom of the crowd is what I'm looking for, the wisdom of the crowd. They've done very distinct studies that, for example, that like just guessing numbers or guessing the weight of a beast that was killed and put up there, like experts that should know were not able to guess the weight of an animal, for example, as accurately as the average of the crowd. So there is a wisdom in numbers. There's a wisdom in a community that isn't in any one individual, that isn't in any one practitioner, any one doctor, any one expert. There's a wisdom in the crowd. And that's really what we do here in the Savvy team. It's a community. The wisdom of the crowd is far better than any one individual person, statistically. And so, this is where contribution and connection to the community makes such a difference to personal growth and in health and healing as well. So, we are all delightful deviations from the norm, as my teacher said, and that's something that's a real benefit to us as a community. So with this phase, you might be tempted to jump into the phase before you're finished with integration, to feel like pushing forward, I need to help and all that sort of thing. Be patient with yourself, okay? Remember, fix your own oxygen mask first before helping other people. We have seen a tremendous value in being part of the community with the personal growth, but it's staying connected. Many people feel like they've learned and then they want to go out on their own when they haven't really nourished themselves. They haven't fitted their own oxygen mask first. So when you're connected with the community, it's like you want to take the only parachute in the plane and jump out of the plane rather than fitting your oxygen mask. So there's wisdom in the crowd, there's benefit in community. So stay connected and don't think that you need to jump out and try to go it alone in contribution and service to the community. Okay. So that was what I sort of experienced. I mentioned there about my first introduction with my mentor and in the healing field and everything. And one of the things that I recognized back in that era is that many people were there. I went to this. I was intrigued. It was interest. Myself and Linda, co-founder of the Savvy team, we went to these events out of pure interest in wow. Of course, we all wanted to do something that would maybe help our own health and body, but it was pure interest and excitement about the process and the learning and everything. It wasn't just to take care of ourselves. And so the types of lessons and learning from being part of this community that we did over a period of 3 years, many of the months of live-in, study and practice and all that sort of thing, working with our mentor, the experiences there were contribution and the value of the learning in the community versus just trying to get fixed. And many people take that on. I just want to get fixed, or I just want to get the information and go and disseminate it elsewhere. And we saw that. We saw so many people who wanted to come along, get the download of information, then go and try to practice it rather than work as a community. And yet our teacher really saw that this was a community change type of thing. And so to this day, much of what we do is reflected based on the learning that we experienced there as wanting to be part of a community, wanting to develop a support structure there around people following this same path. And that's what really how the Savvy team is different to anything else you'll find out there in in the wellness sphere, in my opinion. So anyway, so as I was saying, look, that's been my experience there. We were there to learn, and the more you can tap in and be there to learn and contribute at the same time, your growth will just accelerate if you can learn and grow, learn, grow and contribute, learn, grow, integrate and contribute all at the same time. That's where growth speeds up for you incredibly. So do keep in mind that you might venture back still. You might venture back to the victimhood every now and then, take a visit there, take a bit of a holiday back there, but that's probably not the new you. Okay, just keep in mind that life triggers new thoughts and processes and all that sort of thing. And, all of this contrast, new ideas, new thoughts, it's all good. So it helps with the clarification of where you're going. So it's interesting. So that's that last phase of really, really being able to appreciate what's going on in life and be there to serve. It's interesting. What we saw in this process of healing was that these levels, of which I've categorized as 5 really, but there are multiple emotional levels along the way, stages of growth, emotional levels. And I've never seen this so well distinctly shown, how you can progress through these stages very quickly. As in one particular experience with a session with a young child. And with children, they're a lot less resistant to change and going through a process than adults. As I mentioned, you when you were a child were less resistant. You may think, if you have children and teenagers, you might think children are not less resistant, but on a vibrational and emotional level, you were less resistant. But doing this, I'm doing a healing process and what we would call point holding, which was a sustained acupressure type of process using points on the body and nutritional preparedness on this particular child who had some issues that that they were looking to obviously see what they could deal with. We saw a very distinct track through the emotional levels. And if you've been in part of our programs, you may have seen our emotional levels of vibration here, where we sort of explain all of that a bit. But what happened is this child, first of all, was in, he was obviously, the only reason this was happening is because of health issues and all that sort of thing. But so we saw him come out of the unconsciousness and apathy, some of those lower levels. So it was sort of like nothing mattered and all that sort of thing. We saw him come out of that to a higher level of vibration, which was grief. And then he starts crying and saying, "It's not fair, what are you doing to me?" and all this sort of thing. So it was a definite feeling, the emotion you would definitely identify as grief. And then suddenly, if you understand the emotional scales, moving from unconsciousness to grief was still moving up. And then it was fear. Then he started to get sort of like a fearful voice going on, saying, "Oh, I don't like what you're doing to me." It was more afraid rather than grievance as such. So that was again moving upscale in the vibration. We saw that. And then he got angry. So in other words, think about what I just said before. When you move out of the unconsciousness powerless and you move to the next phase, you might even get angry. When you get moved to that awakening phase, you might even get angry. Well, the child got angry. It was so delineated. And then you get angry. It says, "Stop doing this to me. I don't like what you're doing to me." And then it was just like moving when you get into, and I called it appreciation and service. It was like just like that. He was in enthusiasm and laughing and saying, "You're tickling me." The same things we were doing that he was saying, "You're hurting me," is now saying, "You're tickling me." And his parents were there involved in the process and all that sort of thing. So it was just boom, 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 so fast. And the thing is, if you can let go of the resistance, you can move through these 5 stages of growth and really reach your highest potential too. But, again, you don't often do, it's harder to do that by yourself without loving mirrors around you to say, "What you doing there? You're stepping back into safety," or whatever. And so, look, all I can do is just encourage you to be part of the community. I'd love to know regarding this whole session whether you have any particular insights, inspirations that you got from that. Look, and if you've been applying any of our principles here that we talk about in the Savvy team, let us know your success story. But most of all, please do let us know, how can we help you? Fill out our How Can We Help survey. Let us know what you're looking to achieve, and let's work out a plan. Because whether it be improved health and vitality, or whether it be improved personal situation and money and lifestyle, we're there to help you. For your best journey, you've heard me say this before, you need a plan. You need some solutions. You'll want guidance. And having a community to tap into just makes logical sense. And that's what we do here for you in the Savvy team, or with you, as I should say. So do request an invitation into our community. You can access that just from savvy-team.com, or if you already have a wellness guide, then definitely just talk with your wellness guide and they can tap you in. So again, love to hear your thoughts. Congratulations for being with us here on the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. I'd like to leave you with this thought, good one to think about, that every time you have that awakening in the morning to think today is going to be a good day. How can you have that awakening? How can you wake up feeling, on the right side of the bed, so to speak? How can you start your day with the right thinking? We have this old saying that, "Oh, so-and-so woke up on the wrong side of the bed." When you have that awakening, the thoughts, ideas, and things you take on first thing can play out for the rest of the day. So each awakening, take on the right vibration, take on the right mindset. And if you're currently having your awakening in these 5 stages of growth, take on that mindset that it's going to be a good ride. It's going to be a good journey. Things are going to work out for me. I'm on the right track. There are people there to support me. So we're there to support you. All the best. Look forward to catching up with you sometime soon in the community, or again back here on the show. So all the best. We'll catch you next time.